Today, we're going to be breaking down the throwing mechanics of one of the highest paid NIL college athletes, SHEUDER Sanders. So this first example is going to be like this deep timing speed out route that he throws off of a three-step drop rhythm. Now, we're going to talk about a couple things SHEUDER struggles with in terms of his mechanics on this first clip, and then how he's able to clean it up on this second example of him throwing a deeper pass. And a lot of it has to do with his hip rotation, his lower body weight transfer, upper body dissociation, a ton of biomechanical things that every single quarterback needs to really understand. So whenever we go to throw, you guys, you want to think of your throwing sequence almost like a baseball swing, right? As quarterbacks, all of our throw power, all of our consistency is going to come from our legs, our hips, and our core. But it's not necessarily just about rotating or driving in those three areas. It's more so about the timing of when those two areas or those three areas drive to the target, right? So if you're in a baseball swing stance, like you're in the batter's box, you're holding a baseball bat, pitch is thrown to you, what do? You step to the pitcher, but what you do is you keep your weight loaded onto your backside as you step to that pitcher. You keep the bat back as the foot is stepping towards the pitcher. They call that upper body and lower body dissociation. When your upper body is going back or staying back as your lower body is stepping through. And that's separation right there, having the bat back, front foot gets anchored down, and then you pivot off of that back foot, hips fired through, the bat whips around. That creates something called torque. And that's what all great quarterbacks have, and that's what all great quarterbacks use to be able to drive a ball and have some velocity. Now, SHEUDER does that when he does something mechanically correct with his lower body and with his back leg. Now, you might be thinking, SHEUDER Sanders is insanely talented. He's got a crazy strong arm. Why does this matter? As long as he just gets the ball there. The reason why it matters for younger quarterbacks, or just quarterbacks in general, it's about arm sustainability. It's about being able to make these types of throws over and over and over again consistently without feeling pain in your arm. I can't tell you how many young quarterbacks I've seen just being a quarterback coach with tons of growth plate injuries, shoulder injuries, elbow, just like almost like tendonitis in a sense in their arm because of improper throwing mechanics and not using their hips enough. So when SHEUDER gets into his back leg, he does a good job of keeping his weight back, right? He gets this back leg underneath his frame. He gets to a position I call being stacked, where your head, your knee, and your foot are essentially stacked on top of each other. Now, that doesn't necessarily guarantee that you'll have a great throwing sequence, right? Because you want to get to this stacked position. And the reason why you want to have this weight loaded on your back leg is so you could take that weight and transfer it to your front leg. But one of the mistakes a lot of young quarterbacks will make is that they will transfer that weight as their front foot is getting down. So what ends up happening is that's like if a pitcher throws you a pitch and you have the bat come through same time as you step to the pitcher. There's no separation. Your upper body is not going back as your lower body is taking a stride. So your upper body is opening up as the front foot is getting down. Now, essentially what happens with that, because all of your body weight shifts forward, is that your back hip, your back knee, your back foot all kind of trail behind you in your throwing motion. So at the release point, you see how SHEUDER has his shoulder and his elbow ahead of his back hip, his back leg, and his back foot. That position right there is that quote-unquote all-arm throw. And that's something that I think he struggles with a little bit mechanically. Maybe I shouldn't even say struggle with. That's just something that he does mechanically that maybe not younger quarterbacks want to try to replicate. But again, we're going to show a second example of him actually getting his weight back and keeping his weight back on the foot strike, similar to a baseball swing. And you're going to see how much more natural his release point looks with his hip and his back leg actually going through before the ball, rather than being in this position right here. But all of that is directly related to his weight shifting through on the foot strike. Remember, guys, we want to have my shoulders be back as the front foot stays down. The only way that I can rotate, keep my weight back, rotate my shoulders back correctly is by maintaining that weight position on my back leg as the foot gets down. The front stride needs to be separate from the back leg drive. But when all of that pushes forward at once, we leave the back leg and we leave the back hip behind, which puts a lot of pressure onto my arm. Not to say he doesn't have velocity, not to say that it's not a good ball. Just remember, guys, it's all about sustainability when it comes to your throwing mechanics and avoiding injuries. So this is going to be a positive example of him actually getting his weight back on a much harder throw, I might add, because this is going to be like a deep over route. This is a monster throw, and he's got a cannon of an arm when he does these things properly. Now, before we get into this, you guys, if you're a quarterback and you guys would like a daily off-season training schedule that you can follow, check out that very first link in the description below for our elite quarterback training package. What you'll get access to is 8 weeks of on-field drills for quarterbacks and 8 weeks of gym-specific quarterback exercises. We break down everything like Monday you're doing this, Tuesday you're doing that, on the field and in the gym. We give you the exact sets and reps to follow, and we give you a video example and example of each gym exercise and on-field drill. So guys, if you want a complete summer off-season workout schedule, check out that very first link in the description below. Again, very first link in the description below for our elite quarterback training package. Let's get back to this video. So now, let's take a look at this example from Sanders. Remember, guys, throwing mechanics, your throwing sequence is just like a baseball swing. You want your hips to bring the bat through. You want your hips to essentially bring the football through as well. So let's talk about how we can get to that position. So he's taking a drop. He's doing like a play action drop, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-step drop, and then hitching up into this like deep over route. Now, a lot of quarterbacks, when they get to this position, they have weight on their front foot. When they hitch, they leave that weight onto your front side. But I want you to watch what SHEUDER does. You see how he almost replaces his feet and shifts his weight back. But I want you guys to pay attention to where his weight is and where his shoulders are when this front foot makes contact with the ground. And this is a perfect throwing base. This is the exact stacked position that we talked about, right? So his front foot gets down, but watch where you see how his weight is still onto that backside. You see how his weight isn't pushing all the way forward on the foot strike, like the last example. So look what he's able to do with his front side. He's able to rotate back. He's able to keep his head back. He's able to keep some weight loaded onto this back leg. So now watch what happens. His upper body is staying back. He's in that dissociation position. Upper body separate from the lower body. Foot's down, shoulders are back. Now, look at how his hip is able to fire through before the shoulder, before the football, and before the elbow. Hip is here, football is trailing behind. They call that chasing the hip. You want the football to chase your back hip and trail slightly behind. And all of this has to do with the timing of his hip drive and the timing of his weight transfer with his lower half. Remember, guys, if we get to this position and on the foot strike, all of your body weight shifts forward, your head shifts forward, everything goes to your front leg all at once. Guys, I'm telling you this right now, you're throwing that thing all arm. And I don't think we would be able to drive the ball that far downfield all arm, even if you have a naturally gifted arm like SHEUDER Sanders does. Remember, guys, the front leg step is separate from the back leg drive. Try to almost think of it. I tell my quarterbacks this all the time. Pretend there's a flashlight on your back knee, and that flashlight is trying to face the sideline when your front foot gets down. So you take a step to the target, front foot gets down. We're trying to maintain that flashlight back there because that will help you keep your weight back, and that's what will help you rotate your shoulders back. So now my shoulders are going this way where I'm drawing the arrows, and my step is going towards the target. Now my weight transfer could happen, and that weight transfer will bring the arms through, and that's what creates that whipping effect. That's what creates torque on the ball, more rotations on the ball, and more distance on the ball without putting pressure on my arms. So again, guys, you see two examples from the same quarterback and how much his motion looks how much better his motion looks in this second clip, simply because of where his weight was on the foot strike and what that weight on the foot strike allows our shoulders to do and allows my weight transfer to go through at the right time. So again, when he does these things mechanically correct, guys, very, very, very dangerous passer. He's got an insanely high football IQ, and all the hype is warranted. Again, young quarterbacks watching this, if you can avoid that habit of pushing on the foot strike, you will see a big, big difference in your throwing mechanics, throw velocity, and just overall consistency.